Hey everybody, it's Jen. I have a big message to bring to you guys today. Literally, I've been working on this. It's already like 10:45, and I think I've been sitting with this since about 9 o'clock this morning. Um, there's there's just so much energetically going on right now that there's a whole myriad of topics to cover. This is going to be a longer video than what you're used to from me. And I decided to do it recorded instead of live so that I can keep my focus and keep my thoughts. Um, I've had to reheat my coffee like 100 times this morning. Okay, maybe like 4, but still, like I keep having to reheat my coffee because I'll go start it and then I get wrapped into what's going on and then I come back to it. So I just want to prepare you right now that this is going to be a big message. I would almost say if you can sit with it, maybe take notes, see what spurs in you whenever I go through this. Now, that being said, at the beginning of the year, when I did the January overview, there were some really big things that everything we were looking at, there was a lot of RE words. Well, now I'm seeing why that was coming up. I thought it was because we were looking at 2020 vision and we were going to start seeing things from a new way, which is totally right. But also right now we have 4 big planets in retrograde. So anytime there's any retrograde motion, we have to relook, rework, reevaluate, reassess, like all of the words that are redoing something. Okay. So we've got some really big planets. Now, I could go into all of those. I kind of did that already on a different video, so I'm not going to do that now. But I also want to say that this is June 1st. And so this is kind of the energy for the month, is what I'm hearing from my guides today. And we have to look at everything going on in June, you guys. So not only those big retrogrades that I've already talked about. So if you're not on Patreon, it's still $5 memberships. When those are out, it's going to be $15 a month. So I'm encouraging you, just get it now while you can at $5. You can, whatever. As soon as those spots are filled, because I did that for the first X amount of people that joined, you were able to get it for $5 because anytime I do a brand new program, it's always like I try to go the cheapest I can to see how it's going to work. The people that get on right in the beginning are the ones that get all the kinks out, those kind of things. So they kind of, they're investing even though it's not really polished yet. Okay. When those spots are full, it will be $15 a month. So there's so many messages that my guides have brought through to us in the last year. Okay. So starting last summer, actually starting 2 years ago, but when I started Patreon, there's some big messages that have been coming through all through this last year. So even if you've been on Patreon for a while, it might not hurt to look back through some of the older posts and see what's calling to you right now. Okay. So 2020 as a whole was this whole idea about seeing things clearly. Okay. On top of that, right now, we have 4 planets in retrograde, and Mercury, communication, is going retrograde at the end of June. But before that, starting in just a few days, and you guys know any of these astrological events, you always feel the energy a few days ahead and a few days after. When it's bigger things like this, it can be 2 weeks before and after. Okay, so any of the big planets, like even the moon, okay, so the full moon, I always say at least 3 or 4 days ahead, at least 3 or 4 days after. Same thing with the new moon, you'll feel the energy a few days before, a few days after. When you start going into planets and retrogrades, you're looking at like at least 2 weeks. You'll feel the energy like before the event, and then after the event, it takes a couple weeks for the energy to settle. So 4 planets already, Mercury going in retrograde at the end of the month. And I have notes because on the astrology, I want to be a little bit more clear and precise. Okay, so the next thing is the eclipses are coming. Okay, now the eclipses, you think about that, it's always like something overlapping something else, right? And it gives you a different kind of vision, right? Because it's lining up in a different way. So we have a lunar eclipse on the full moon in June, I think it's like the 5th. Then we go into a solar eclipse, which is the sun, and then we go back into a lunar eclipse. Now, to me, anything to do with the moon always has to do with our emotions. So we're getting to really be able to take a deep look over the next month at really our deep emotions, okay? Now, that being said, part of the message from this year was a collective mirror. And again, when I said this in January, I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. But now I'm seeing with everything happening going on right now, there's always it's always mirroring back to you what you're aligning with vibrationally. Okay. Now there's so many different ways I could go with this, but let's just go basic law of attraction. Okay. Basic law of attraction says that whatever you vibrate with, whatever you agree with, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of those things create a vibration. So whatever you're aligning with vibrationally is what you're going to see. So a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's spiritual bypassing if you're choosing to see the good in everything. I don't think it is, as long as you're doing the work. Now, if you want to only see the good in everything, that's great. But we also have to do what's called shadow work. Okay. And that's looking at where are the shadows within us, where can you refine yourself? And that's just all part of being human. And part of the purpose here is to get through those things. And that's what the ascension is. The ascension is raising our vibration, which means raising our physical, mental, emotional reactions and responses, and the way that the baseline from where we resonate and vibrate from, raising that to more purity, right? Because the ultimate goal is always love. So whenever we're going through all of these things, if you see something that triggers you, so this is where the collective mirror comes in. If you see something happening out there that triggers you inside, makes you upset, makes you frustrated, makes you want to lash out, whatever, that's always showing you a shadow. Okay. The way my guides have brought this to me today is really, really crazy. I'm going to take a minute, get a drink of coffee. So give me just one sec. Okay. So my coffee's hot. I got to drink it. I feel a little bit better. You guys that have been with me, especially on Patreon, you've been hearing me talk about radical responsibility. Okay. This is where we're going to dig in now. The best way to make the best use of this time, if you're on the path of growth, okay, spiritual growth, mental growth, physical growth, whatever it is, right? Like, I don't care if you're trying to learn to work out differently, or if you're really looking at the way you process emotions, or if you're trying to take your, spiritual practice to the next level, whatever is showing up for you, all of it is valid, and all of it is part of ascension, whether you know it or not. Because again, it's just about raising up our understanding, bringing our vibration closer to, when I think of refinement by the fire, I think of making it pure. And if love is the ultimate goal, then that's what we're doing. We're trying to refine within ourselves what we can to bring us closer to love, true, unconditional, vibrating purity of love. Okay. So the other thing my guides have been saying is that we have to start integrating our head and our heart. So again, those of you that have been with me, we've been talking about this for a few months now. We have to get what our mind is thinking in alignment with how our heart feels, and integrating those so that they work as a whole, instead of letting our heart, or letting our head talk us out of what our heart feels, because the truth is in our heart, right? Any practice you think of, like, I don't care what religion you're from, it's like, focus on love, focus on love, focus on love. Well, what's focusing on love? Focusing on love is feeling in your heart that you feel love, right? If you're a Christian, you ask Jesus into your heart. Like, that's the whole purpose of the idea of becoming Christian, is asking Jesus to be in your heart, right? So if we're looking and focusing on love, what happens a lot of times is our mindset gets us out of the way, or what I call the nasty little mean girl gets in the way and talks us out of something, right? So you guys know that the only way to make things easier for yourself in your own life is to become radically responsible for yourself, okay? Now, what's funny is my guides had me get back to my old book. So this is the book I wrote in 2015. It's been out there for a while. Sorry, I have an itch on my back. And what they brought me to was, this is a chapter on autopilot, like to stop living on autopilot. And it says, what are you doing each day to set intentions and grow? Okay. So they're talking about, in this chapter, this is all about becoming intentional about what you're doing. So the question would be, with what's happening out there in the world, where are you giving your attention, and are you intentionally doing so? So like, are you flipping on the news and just watching because it's habit, or are you going to the news because you want to see what's going on, or are you going to the news and you're just doing it out of habit and it's making you cranky and upset and all of those kind of things? It's triggering you, right? We see that with the riots. Okay, people are out of their minds, literally. Like, I don't think if anybody was intentionally deciding that they were going to go destroy somebody else's business, that's definitely the darkness at play. That being said, as I'm saying that, the guides, because I wasn't planning to go to this part, but my guides are saying that we have to also remember there's a spiritual war going on. So not only is this humans acting things out, but there's also spiritual war, right? Because what I wanted to say was, who in their right mind would do that? Well, they're probably not in their right mind. They've probably got darkness whispering in their ear saying to go do this, because I don't know that anybody would be able to think rationally and think, well, you know, this is what's happening, and because they did that, I'm going to go and do this and destroy that business, who is somebody that has nothing to do with this situation that just went on. Okay, so this is all about paying attention to what you're giving your attention to and how it's affecting you. Because if it's getting you upset, it's probably not where you really want to spend the most of your time. That being said, if you're watching it and you're getting triggered and you're willing to be on that path of ascension, you're going to look at it and say, okay, this is really upsetting me. Why am I getting so upset? What is going on? What is this triggering? Where am I getting this reaction from, right? So it's asking all those questions. And so then what my guides brought me to this morning is really being in a space of, okay, deciding, okay, so this is in the book and I'm on page 56, 57. And it's just talking about, this whole chapter is talking about being in the space of really looking at being intentional. So it's the take control and then being intentional chapters. And you have to be intentional about why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. Now, sometimes we're going to get into the reasons, but the really important thing here, and I think why they brought me to this part in the book, is we have to get to the place where we're really vulnerable and raw and real with ourselves. Now, you don't have to do this work in front of anybody. If you're in one of my private groups, this is a great place to go through some of this stuff. But here's the thing. What do you really want in life, and why don't you have it already? If you want peace in the world, why isn't it there already? What are you doing? And I'm not saying that you're going to change the entire world, but really you can change the entire world by changing and refining yourself, because it's always a trickle effect. Okay. So if you want peace right now, what are you doing that's promoting peace? Okay. This brings me to what my guides told me just the other day. I'm going to look it up because I remember it was very specific the other day about pursuing peace. I don't remember if this was on my own or if it was my personal one or my business page that I did this on. Okay, so there's a couple things that they've been saying is the light shines and in the darkness, and the darkness does not comprehend it. So there's one thing. Okay, here's what I was looking for. We have to start listening with our heart. Proceed slowly and carefully with intention and awareness. Okay, I did a recording on that on Patreon, but that's the big takeaway, is proceed slowly and carefully with intention and awareness. You have to be aware and intentionally looking at, where are you spending your time? What are you focusing on? And when you're focusing on it, is it bringing you joy or is it bringing you angst? Okay. Okay. Now, that being said, okay, this was really interesting too. My guides, I literally gotten to the place where I just listen. Whatever they're saying, I listen to. So this morning they told me, Google riddles and Google riddles that are about shadow. So I Googled riddles about shadow. You know what came up? And of course, it's not a coincidence. It says, I can only live where there is light, but I die if the light shines on me. What am I? The answer is a shadow. So look at this. If we look at this from our perspective as humans, if you're on a spiritual path and you're open to awakening to a new level of being, right? You're ready to start intentionally living your life. you're going to understand that we live on the planet and we have contrast. We have light and dark, we have day and night, we have white and black, we have, I don't know, purple and yellow, like whatever the opposites are on the color wheel. Like we have opposites of everything, right? Right, wrong, yes, no, like there's all of this contrast. Okay, contrast is what makes up the experience on the planet. So the shadow, which is, you know, aligned with, not that it's the same as darkness, but the shadow can only live where there's light. There has to be contrast. But if light shines on the shadow dies, right? So if there's light shining on it, it can't exist because it has to be where the light is not directly on it. Okay, so the best way to refine and become radically responsible is to look at where are the shadows within you. Okay, now shadows don't have to be negative. I'm not saying that you have darkness in you or anything like that. I'm just saying, what are the things inside you that you don't really want to admit, look at, you don't want anybody to know? It could be as simple as you feeling like you're not worthy. That would be a shadow, because the truth is, in divine truth, you are completely worthy. You're a divine being. So the work there would be, to let that shadow die, you would have to start believing that you're worthy. Okay, so it's that simple, but it's that complicated, if that makes sense. So remember that if you shine light, the shadows die. So how can you become radically responsible for your own shadow? Okay, now I'm going to get into what has been coming up here. Okay, so whenever I was talking with my guides this morning and kind of getting clear on what they wanted me to bring through, I have to mention that here in the last year or so, I've been working a lot with clearing generational imprints, generational patterns, generational programming. Like it's all been about generational stuff. Okay, like back in the day when we were doing healing, we would do like karmic clearing and cutting cords and all of those kind of things, right? Well, here lately, I would say in the last year, between me and some of my clients, we've really looked at generational situations. Okay, if you look at what's going on in the news right now, and it's all about, you know, the division between race, there's a lot of that is what's going on, because of the Black person that died. And of course, unfortunately, it was a white cop. I mean, but the thing is, it could be any scenario. It could be a Black cop and a white guy, like, but whenever this is coming up, the reason that it's coming up is because of the generational issues with race and slavery and all of the things that happened back in the day, right? Now, you and I probably weren't alive in that time, so we're not technically responsible for it. But what happens is, whether like scientifically, they've proven that your DNA actually holds memory. So we didn't do what was done in those days. However, the prejudice, the resentments, the anxiety, the stress, the angst, the energy of it is something that we have to look at together as a collective. Okay, the collective mirror is right now looking at restriction, disempowerment, anger, angst, frustration, and resentment were the words that I got. Okay. And what my guide said is the point of this is to release ourselves. And these are the words that they use. The point is to release ourselves from the chains of the past. So if we look at everything from a spiritual perspective, and if we understand that this is a spiritual war, we have to also know that as we refine or ascend, right? So as we're all ascending, in order to ascend as a collective, we have to clear out the gunk, the shadows from the past. The next thing that they brought me to was, okay, the actual definition. So you guys that work with me a lot, you know that I like to look at the definition of the word, okay? This is shifting a little bit, I know, because this is kind of like an energy update, but it's shifting into what's going in the collective. And at first I was like, I didn't understand, but now that I see it, just bear with me because my guides tie it all back up together at the end. So if we look collectively, the energy right now keep in mind all the retrogrades, right? So resentment is an RE word. What does resentment mean? Bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Okay. Wrongdoing from someone or an injustice, discrimination, prejudice, being taken advantage of, feeling unrecognized, or envy and jealousy. All of those are words that describe, define, or align with resentment. So the thing is, we have to look at resentment and see where do we feel personally that we've been taken advantage of? Where do we feel personally that we've been unrecognized? Where have we personally felt jealousy? I mean, I think that's a normal, common thing that a lot of people feel. I think, again, the wrongdoing and the injustice maybe isn't necessarily us personally, but in the history of the United States. And I'm talking, I don't care what color, race, creed, I don't care what you are. You're in the collective of the American USA right now, right? So if you're on the path of healing, we need to look at where are we doing this. Just from my standpoint, again, I don't care if you're red, yellow, green, purple, blue, because there's all kinds of beings that are on this planet. Some of them that I've seen, they're different colors. Let's just say that. So when you start getting into the celestial stuff, it's amazing what colors you see. So I'm going to reel that back in and get back to the planet, because that's what we're working on right now. So any of this resentment that's coming up, we have to release ourselves from the chains of the past. How do we do that? We work internally with ourselves. And so, I mean, it's all of these things that are so messed up. Like, if we would stop looking at race, color, religion, sexual orientation, if we would stop looking at that and just start looking at people and situations, it just would change. It literally would change the world, you guys, if we could get to that point to be able to do that. So here's what it comes down to, because the generational healing is what's been coming up, right? With the retrogrades, revisiting, rethinking, reevaluating, all of those things, let's look at generations. So with that being said, what can you do to make things better? First of all, who are you? You need to know who you are and what beliefs you have and what you align with, okay? Okay, so when we look at who are we really, I want to look at the idea of this generational thing, okay? Because a lot of the anger in the collective right now is people working from generational paradigms that have been passed down. And they've been passed down not only emotionally, but energetically, okay? So, like I said, scientifically, they've proven that in our DNA, we hold memory. Okay, so now whether you want to call that past life experience, whether you want to call that family patterning, whether you want to call that the paradigm you grew up in, I don't care what you want to call it, but let's just agree, or not, you don't have to agree with me, that if we're looking at generational paradigms, programs that have been passed down, not only emotionally, but energetically, how can we make things better, right? Because that's what all of us want if we're going through this. We want to make things better, right? So who are you? What do you stand for? What values do you have? That would be the first thing, okay? Now, my first experience with anything to have to do with generational stuff was actually a Bible study that I did, and one of the chapters in the Bible study was about generational sin. Now, before we get all wrapped up on that word, I want to get this out of the way. Generational sin may not mean what you think it means, okay? I just heard the little clip from Princess Bride. That does not mean what you think it means. I do not think that means what you think it means. So when you hear generational sin, this is how I like to do the work. What does that trigger in you? Where do you feel it? What do you feel? What are you thinking? Let's get all of the ideas about what you're thinking and feeling about that out of the way, because that's where we can refine, right? So I remember a sermon like years ago where the pastor was talking about this. And what I learned then literally shifted my perspective on everything, because, you know, I've grown up that sin is this awful thing that keeps you separated from God, and you're never going to be able to repay for it, and you're always going to be unworthy, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Well, if you look into, and this is another weird thing that I like to do, is I like to look at the words. Like I said, I just looked up the word resentment, got the definition. A lot of times I'll go even deeper and figure out, where was this originally used? What does this really mean? So if we look back to biblical times and we look at the word sin, in both Hebrew and Greek, it means miss the mark. And what's funny is, in both language, it's about archery. It's not about life. It's about an archery term. So basically what that's saying is the same as, if you miss the target or miss your mark, it's like a foul ball, right? It's like, if you know how if you hit a ball, or if you, whether basketball, baseball, whatever, it's a foul. That's it. Foul ball, went out of bounds, didn't hit the mark, didn't hit the basket. That's really the truth of what sin means. So all of the connotations that have been thrown around that are really got us out of divine alignment with the truth of what that is. Okay. So what I feel like right now is that God is calling us, God, source, universe, whatever your term is that you like to use. God is calling us to heal the energy of the past by truly understanding it, and then intentionally changing it within us. Okay, so we have to intentionally change our own vibration of what we feel within us. If we all do that, if we all do our own healing, if we all do our own, you know, energy awakening, ascension, if we all raise our own awareness about not only spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, all of that. And then galactic energy is at play right now too, because there's, like I said, going back to the beginning, there's all these planets in retrograde, right? So if you're really doing the work, let's really look at this. Let's use this time for the ascension, for the awakening, or whatever it is. Like, what, just raise your own awareness of what is happening, and looking at, where are we personally missing the mark when it comes to aiming for divine truth. Okay. Now what's really funny is, I was surprised my guides wanted me to bring this up, but I keep hearing some of the younger generation saying they're woke. Okay. So I love that, because I'm like, okay, great. That means people are waking up. But what I want to know is, if you're really getting woke, what happens is you forget about judging everybody else, and you really don't even judge what's showing up for yourself. But you look and see, when you become woke, the whole point of that is to look within yourself to see what you can refine. Okay. Now I always go back to what I've learned in the Bible, which is the refinement by the fire. What happened in refinement by the fire is basically what alchemy is. Okay. Alchemy is just changing one thing to something else. Now, how would they get all the rocks and dirt out so that the silver was pure? They would put it through fire, because all the impurities fall away. So that's what ascension, awakening, refinement, all of these things are about, us becoming more purely in line with the divine. Okay. So basically, like I said, is what can we do to look at our shadows, right? Because whenever we look at a shadow, if we shine light, the shadow dies, right? Like the shadow goes away when light is directly on it. So if you're in this point and you're willing to do the hard work, I'm telling you, it is the most transformational thing you can do for your own life. And what happens is, when you do that, it starts to ripple out, whether you know it or not. When you change your vibration, anyone who's going to be around in your vibration, their vibration is either going to raise and change with you, or it will fall away. Just plain simple. It's just one of the laws of vibration. Like, it has to happen, because it's either you're going to lose your vibrational, like if you're at a high vibration and you get around somebody negative, either you're going to drop into it, which, again, no judgment. It takes some practice in the beginning to get yourself up to the higher vibration and actually be able to hold it, which means when you're around negativity, you don't get sucked into the lower vibration. You're able to still hold your own vibration and hold the higher energy in the midst of all the chaos and the frustration. And so when you can do that, it is literally the most transformational work you can do. Okay, so with that being said, with everything that I said on the astrology and the words of resentment, the collective mirror, and reevaluating everything, in light of what's showing up right now, I really feel like prejudice and resentment are the two biggest energies that we need to look at. Okay, so prejudice can be learned, but it can also be passed down unconsciously via either energetics or DNA memory, right? So whichever way you want to look at that, whether you want to look at maybe it's energetically tied to you from past life, or if you believe that your family just, it went down in your DNA. The thing is, regardless of where it came from, you have to take radical responsibility for it. Okay. And you guys, this goes both ways. It isn't about white, black, brown, purple, green. You guys have heard me say that. It really doesn't matter that. What really matters is our own personal thoughts and beliefs. Now, sometimes you'll have a belief that you don't even know that you have, and that's where generational comes in. It's been really interesting. The work that I've done here lately has been um, all about generational. And like, so even for me, I'm like, something is holding me back and I don't know what it is. And I've been searching and searching and searching. And so I actually got a hit. And again, I did the generational sin thing with a Bible study years ago, but onions, I hate the freaking onion analogy, but you guys, it's onions. So as you're going through the refinement, as you're going through the ascension, you're going to get to different levels. And I think I just said this on the Patreon pop-up call the other day, that it's like life is like a spiral. So every time you go around, you may come back to the same lesson. We'll call it a lesson. Or I hate to say test, but basically the next, if you go across the lesson again, but this time you're on the spiral staircase, you've come up a rung on the staircase. So you're going to be looking at it from a new perspective. So you're going to have new awareness. You're going to have new, awakening about it, and you'll have new realizations, which again, every time you have an aha moment, it's great, because an aha moment means you just shifted the paradigm a little bit. You just shifted your energy into a higher vibration. And I kind of jokingly say, if I give you an aha moment, that's great, because it adjusts your vibration. But if I ruffle feathers, man, that's good, because that's where the big work is going to be. And that's what's going to really catapult you to a new paradigm. When you have those big ones that are really hard and you're like, God, you're really soul searching. So the aha moments are fantastic, but ruffle and feathers, man, that's where the big stuff comes in, and it really helps you adjust and really ascend quickly. Okay. And I just want to, again, you guys, this isn't about one race or the other. It's about your own thoughts and beliefs. And I've seen the prejudice on both sides, right? Like I've seen Black people be prejudiced to white people. I've seen Hispanics be prejudiced to, and I hate that term. Okay, so let me just say this right here. I hate the whole term Hispanics. God love my friends that are from other countries, because I feel like it's, okay, so you're Hispanic, but what does that mean? Like, where is your country of origin? Are you from Mexico? Are you from Spain? Are you from Venezuela? Like, I don't even know what all the stupid American census or whatever the census, I don't even know if that's like an American thing or if it's a world thing or whatever, but where do they get this? Like, how do they decide? It's just frustrating. It's frustrating to me, because I'm American because I was born in America. Like, that's really how I feel about it. So that being said, I have acquaintances, friends of all of it. And so I've seen Native Americans be prejudiced. I've seen whites I've seen everybody in some way or another deal with prejudice and resentment. So I really don't feel like this is a certain ethnicity problem. I think this is a human problem. Okay. Okay. That being said, the other thing is, why are we still dividing people by classifications? I just went on that rant, but I'm just saying, like, really, why are we still dividing people? That's another thing we need to look at, is why are we dividing people? We're all human, okay? Everybody has had different experiences. There's no doubt about that. We all have different generational shit baggage that we need to clear and look at and refine. I keep hearing that, you guys, that it's refinement. So I really feel like this time is really about a refinement. So what we can do is really, let's look at how to do healing now, how to clear negativity in the news. I will tell you that I think the news is really disproportionate, because I know that there's so many people that are just good, and I know there's more people ascending than are not. But the other thing that my guides have also been telling me is that this year is really going to be about a big divide. It's going to show the difference between the big divide of those who are really in the light, trying to do the ascension, trying to get out of what they're calling 3D, the density, trying to move into 5D, if that's, which is just, again, about raising vibration, right? It's about understanding things from a new level, seeing things from a higher perspective, all of those kind of things. And that's going to be like, those people are going to look like they're doing really, really good. And then you're seeing all of the negativity and the depth of the darkness, right? But I really feel like my guides are saying, don't buy into the depth of what is being portrayed in the media. They're only showing the worst of it, and they're showing it over and over and over and over. Okay. That being said, since it's showing up, let's look at it, right? So some of the things that I like to do when I'm working with my clients is always ask questions. Like, I kind of have this joke about the why game, because you have to get into the why of things, right? So first of all, what do you believe? Do you believe that race, color, creed matters? If so, no judgment, yes or no. It doesn't matter which way. It's just look at it and be totally, this is coming into the raw truth and vulnerability about really getting real with yourself, right? So it doesn't matter what the answer is, but for yourself, look at, what do you believe? Okay. And then ask yourself, why do I believe that? Okay. Why do I believe that? Is this just something that was passed down? I've never really thought about it. I wasn't intentional about it. I just kind of accepted it at some point in time. Again, nothing wrong with that, right? Because a lot of the things that happen generationally, we just don't even, it's like, you don't even think about it. You just do it, right? Like coffee. Everybody in my family drinks coffee. I don't know why or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I decided for myself, I do like coffee. And so when I was going through this with my own transformation, I looked at everything. Like, why do I, whatever, you know what I mean? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? I looked at everything. So with what's showing up in the news right now and what's being shown in the collective, let's look at, what do you believe? Why do you believe it? Then the next thing is to ask yourself, is that belief true? Okay, so this is where we're really getting in line with divine alignment and divine love, and really looking at what unconditional love means. Is this belief that I have really true when it comes to unconditional love? If it's not true, then it's a sin, meaning it's missing the mark. So if you want to change the belief and decide, do I need this belief? Do I want to keep this belief? Or is this something I should change? Then we would say, where is it missing the mark? Where can I adjust my thought? Then you can say, does this belief support the highest and best for everybody, right? Does this belief that I have support the highest and best, not only for me, but for my family, for my community, my country, like the whole world? Like, is this belief in the highest and best for everybody involved? Then you ask yourself, once you've kind of gotten through those questions, how can I transform this belief with love? Okay. So if you were to shine light or love onto that belief, what would need to change or die away? What shadow would need to be revealed and let go of to be able to transform that belief? Okay. One of the other things that you can really look at, and this kind of, I'm going to go on to something a little bit broader as I wrap this up, because I feel like, again, you guys, I know this is probably way longer video than normal, but um, anything that you're looking at, like those questions right there are really, really important. So I'm going to reiterate those one more time. I'm just going to say them one more time. What do I believe? Why do I believe that? Is that belief true? Do I need or want to keep the belief? Does this belief support the highest and best for all involved? And how can I transform this belief with love? Okay. Then if you want to do a little bit deeper, one of the things that you can look at as far as like in the collective out there is, am I judging or am I observing? Okay. So like, I don't watch the news very often, but I do when my guides give me a heads up that I need to see what's going on. Okay. So, and everybody that works with me knows that, like, I don't watch it, but every so often I've just got to tune in because I need to know what's going on in the world. Right. But I just try to observe it. I just try to see, okay, what's going on? And if I catch myself judging anything, then I have to look at it. Why am I judging this? And then I go into, what do I believe? Why am I believing that? You know what I mean? And then what you're looking at from that perspective is there anything I can change within myself? Okay. Which would then circle back to the questions. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? So it's really, really important right now to be in a space of, am I judging or just observing? Because I'm telling you guys, Facebook has been disgusting lately. And yes, I am judging it, but like literally the energy of it, because people are attacking other people for no reason. Like why do we have to believe exactly the same thing to be able to be in the same space? Like, I don't know, but back in the day when I was a kid, like debate was a good thing because it helps you see the side of other things. But it wasn't about attacking the other person personally. It was about really diving into the truth of the situation, the truth of, you know, whatever we were debating, right? There wasn't any anger behind it. There wasn't any resentment behind it. It was literally like, let's look at both sides of this and let's see, where can we adjust it? Where can we compromise? How can we find the best for all involved, right? Like that's the whole purpose of a good, true debate, is about looking at things from different perspectives. So big message today, you guys. I know there's a lot going on. I hope that this is really sitting with you well. I hope you're feeling it in your heart. I hope you're really understanding that even though this is really rough right now, in divine truth, I know I've been saying this too, in divine truth, all is well. I feel like a lot of this has to be uncovered so that we can process it, deal with it, clear it, heal it, whatever. And I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some kind of a prayer that we can all use collectively. And I'll post that on my business page later because I want to wrap this up. But sending love to you guys. Share this if it resonates and if it feels good to you. Again, you guys, I love you all. I'm sending lots of love. Try so hard to be in that space of compassion. The other thing I know a lot of my clients have been talking about lately is really feeling it. And all of a sudden I just started feeling like this heaviness in my heart. I have a couple meditations in the Patreon group that you can listen to the meditations. There's one specifically, I think it's called, it's like breathing and heart chakra expansion. So you could try that one. You could just do the energy reset, which is kind of an overall balancing your chakras out, those kind of things. And the best, biggest, most important thing I need to tell you is don't judge yourself for whatever comes up. You just got to look at it and look at the shadows and work through it. You haven't done anything wrong. It's either been passed down, instilled, whatever. Like anytime you're doing any of this work, no matter what it is, you didn't do anything wrong because we're always operating from what we know, right? So when you have that next awareness, then it brings you to the next level. You've got to look at things from a new perspective. Okay. So whatever stage you're on, again, this is not a race. It's not a competition. Everybody is awakening, ascending, whatever word you want to put there, in their own divine timing, in their own divine growth, in their own, I mean, it's all about divine timing and it's all on purpose and on time. So you're not behind anybody. You're not ahead of anybody. You're right where you need to be. So just trust that. So sending love to everybody. I hope you're having a great day despite all of the craziness that's going around again. Really quick, I want to also leave you with something really positive. My guides have been saying that this really is a powerful time for manifestation. So you can still manifest amazing things if you're paying attention and being intentional with your alignment and where you're at, right? So if you're doing the work, if you're looking at your own stuff, and if you're using the law of attraction works, whether there's anything good going on in the earth or not, you can create good by where you're focusing your intentions. And remember that you have to intentionally be aware of what you're paying attention to. Okay, so focus on the good, focus on the light. Don't be afraid of the shadow. Like whatever, if you're doing the work and something comes up, don't be afraid of it. Be honest about it, right? That's how the refinement comes. That's how the process of awakening works. There's nothing to be afraid of or ashamed of in the process of it. So again, if your end focus and your end goal is unconditional love, you're already on the right track. Okay. Sending you guys lots of love, and I'll talk to you soon.